This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to topcatteamsales.com. That's topcatteamsales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You are listening to the Doc and Jock Podcast, episode 151. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. I hear you got some news for me. Deliver it. I love it. I love news.
So this is what's going on for today. This is basically square pegs, round holes. We're going to be cramming stuff everywhere. We're going to talk about your Detroit Red Wings. We're going to talk about them and some free agency, maybe even touch on the draft if we have a little bit of time to do that. We're going to talk to a guy who takes great pictures of the Tigers and Comerica. Mike Mulholland's going to join us. Also, we're going to touch on your Tigers and the Jock maybe having a change of heart here. Doc's probably going to be puffing his chest out and telling me, I told you so. So we're going to get into that, break it down a little bit. But before all that, Doc and Jock were hobnobbing like some mofos this past weekend. I got to meet one of the owners of Oakland County FC. Beautiful girl, very nice, Nicole Griffith. She does a great job out there. So for those of you who don't know, Oakland County FC, they're based out of Rochester Hills. It's very similar to Detroit FC. League is comparable, about the same. They're in a different league, however. Like I said, they're based out of Rochester Hills. You can check them out at oaklandcountyfc.com so you can get some game times and just kind of go taking some really exciting soccer action. Hopefully we can get something going with them. We get a good partnership going. We'll see what's going on with that. I'm going to have to get on Nicole here and talk to her a little bit. But really exciting product, high energy, local product. It's all about community. So go check it out. It's really cool. And, of course, we had the great event with Fanatic U, a great sponsor of ours. You got to go. You and Vito went. You sat there. You got to talk with Salty. You got to shake his hand. You got to smell his sweat and his musk. Took two, not one, but two of our listeners to it. On top of it, you got to sit there and hobnob with a lot of the people in line, a lot of our listeners. How was it?
Listen, the whole experience was very eye-opening, entertaining, fun. And what I really enjoyed was both winners drove a little bit of a way to get there. One winner, Andrea, showed up from Ann Arbor, which is about 30 to 40-minute drive from Brighton. The other winner, Scott, he drove in from Macomb. So he ran into some traffic, so he arrived at the signing about 10 minutes after we left, so I didn't get a chance to meet him formally, but I got a chance to meet Andrea and her fine family. Her little daughter was so cute, and they got to talk to my nephew, and she was just, introduced herself, and we got a chance to talk a little bit, and she showed her support, and we talked a little bit about the project and what the hell I was doing with the Twitter page, and it was so nice to be able to give back to the listener and somebody that really just follows us strongly and is a big supporter. The nephew enjoyed meeting Salty. He was a little bit shy, but Salty has a presence. When you first see him, dude is like country boy, muscular, strong, big dude. That's a big dude there. And I was like, wow, I was taken aback by how just the massive man that he is. But he was very polite, very nice. It was a nice signing, all around great event. Got to meet the owner of Fanatic U and just walk up to him and just be like, hey, thank you so much for the help that Fanatic U has given Detroit Sports Podcast. Thank you for allowing us to cover this event. And talking to the people in line, they were really, and what I told Jason and Vito was, really everybody in line, even after coming off of the sweep, which I brought up to everybody, they were like, you know what? We're Tigers fans. We're going to stick with them no matter what. It's a great time to meet a Tiger. And hey, it's up and down kind of season. We know that we're struggling a little bit, but hey, we support the team no matter what. And it kind of brought back a little bit of invigoration for me. Like, you know what? These are true fans. They're not going to be dissing them too much. They're not fanatical like maybe you and I are. But all in all, any opportunity that we can get to talk with the fans and interact with them. And hey, everybody that I asked was willing to come on and chat with me for a couple minutes. It was a very nice event, something that I'm not really used to, going out there and meeting the people and stuff like that. But I made it an effort to be like, hey, I'm John with the podcast. We do this every week. We enjoy, putting on these shows, and hey, have a listen. And a lot of people were like, sweet. And it's shown up. It's shown up right away with more listens, more downloads. And hey, if you get a chance to do this and meet people that actually follow you, I'm going to take full advantage of it. I liked it, and it got me a little bit out of my comfort zone. But once I did it, I was really happy and just fully out, engaging with the people. So it was a very fruitful event. Hopefully we get a chance to do it again, July 17th, Michael Fulmer. Hopefully we can make that happen again.
Sounds like a great event. Sorry I missed it. I had to do some work for WWJ and some of the Detroit affiliates. So I was kind of depressed about it.
But I cheered you up. I got you the swag, and I got to show off the DSP swag. We're starting now the new phase of being like, you know what? Let's not keep this so underground. Let's just tell everybody who we are and what we're doing. I got you an opportunity to, I know it was your birthday a couple weeks back, so got you a hat, T-shirt, some polo shirts and stuff like that on the way. So we're going to start sticking DSP all over some crap and maybe give it out to the people.
There we go. Got me some shirts, so when I go on Justin Rowe's web show, I can sit there and rock DSP.
Not this round. The next round for sure. You get the nice polo shirt, professional, but it's a T-shirt. It's a nice embroidered T-shirt and a hat. So
that's what I'm talking about.
Anytime you're out and about, tell everybody what we're all about. No doubt about it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Tiger fans because, and I say this as my segue here, they might be a little bit more level-headed, like you said, than us. And after this past weekend, watching what Cleveland did to the Tigers, just dismantle them, I'm going to have to change my stance and my thought process on where this team can end up and where this team will go. I no longer believe that they'll win the Central. I just don't. Here's the deal. You are 0-9 against the Cleveland Indians.
What?
Against every other team, you're at least 9 games better. So I just don't see them having a chance to sit there and contend with Cleveland. Even if they end up in second, they're not overtaking Cleveland. There's no way. Cleveland has become what the Kansas City Royals were to the Tigers in 2006. You can't figure out a way to beat them, no matter what you try, no matter how you adjust your lineup, no matter what pitchers you roll out. If I was to sit there and tell you, hey, Anibal Sanchez is going to pitch better than Justin Verlander and Jordan Zimmerman, you would have thought we would have took 3 wins. Instead, they sat there and they got shelled for 3 straight games. Justin Verlander had his worst performance as a professional. Jordan Zimmerman looks sloppy. Anibal Sanchez, there's a reason why he's getting sent back to the bullpen. It was brutal. Absolutely brutal. The Cleveland Indians are now the Tigers' kryptonite this season, and I just don't see them sitting there conquering the Cleveland Indians anytime soon.
Now, does it give you any solace at all to maybe readjust your goal and say, listen, as of this recording, we're only 1.5 games back of the wild card. Maybe just readjust your goal and say, listen, maybe winning the Central is not going to be where it's at, but maybe get into that wild card situation and see what happens.
Yeah, but my whole thing was I was beating my drum for them winning the Central, and I was rubbing it in your face every single week because they just kept inching closer and closer and closer, and now it's unbelievable how far that they have fallen behind. I mean, there's 7.5 games at this point right now, possibly 7 games by the time this podcast comes out. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. We're almost halfway through the season, and the Tigers are so far in a well looking up, trying to dig their way out. I just don't see them having the wherewithal, not with the way this pitching staff is currently constructed, and not with the way that this bullpen sometimes goes out there and looks shaky. I just don't see it. On top of it, the bats do dry up. I mean, Miguel Cabrera hit a 3-run bomb the other night that kind of set everything off to go against the Marlins and really got them cooking. But if that doesn't happen, they're losing 3-0 in this ball game. It's just where are the bats? Where? I mean, it took the 5th inning for them to hang crooked numbers. It's really weird the way this team plays because all of a sudden it comes in waves. The bats will be calm and quiet. It's just like the sea, calm and quiet, and then next thing you know, it's a tidal wave that'll hit you. And the tidal wave will sit there and rock and roll for 2, 3, 4, 5 games, and then it dries up for 5 games, and then it hits for 5. I mean, it's a 500 ball club. That's what we're dealing with right now. And the bigger concern for me is how do they address this pitching rotation? What do they do? Because right now, Anibal Sanchez obviously isn't getting it done. Mike Pelfrey, he doesn't know what he's doing out there. He came out and said as much. You know, they said, hey, limit the damage. He said, I don't know how I'm going to do it. He got lucky with a double play, was able to get out of the inning against the Marlins the other night.
You see his stat line? Oh,
yeah,
my
it's
gosh.
horrible. It's atrocious.
I think 11, 12 hits given up.
The guy basically, every inning he's in, he puts 2 runners on. I mean, you're playing with fire there. So you need a 5th starter. You absolutely need a 5th starter. And I don't know if that comes in the way of Daniel Norris, Shane Green. I don't know if you go out there during the trade deadline and try to acquire somebody. I mean, there's all kinds of question marks for Al Avila right now.
I understand exactly where you're coming from. See, I'm not as disappointed because I had thought this was around a 500 team at the beginning of the year. But there are some points you can look to for hope, in that there is a trade deadline ahead, and there's roughly half the season for the Tigers to turn this around. Now, you're going to get J.D. Martinez back, which should, infuse this offense with a little bit more power and hits and consistency. Then I do believe that at the trade deadline, there is no chance in hell they're going to sell. They're not going to take my advice and blow this thing up. Now, that's what I think they should have done a year ago, but they're not going to do it. So let's just talk about what they might do. They might make a couple moves to infuse this team with a little bit of life, and then they're going to hope. So this month of July, I'm going to say probably is the biggest month to this point, this month of July, because they have a chance to kind of tread water, maybe stick around between 4 and 7 games back, make a move, and then go for it in August and September. But if they fall back to, 10 to 15 games back of Cleveland, if Cleveland just absolutely runs away with it, or if Cleveland decides to hulk up and make some moves to add to their team in an effort to win the entire World Series, then you might be looking at the official end of the Detroit Tigers era. That's why this month of July is going to be so key with what moves Al Avila makes. This is going to be the biggest time in his tenure with the Tigers organization. What are you going to do? What are you going to be willing to move? And what pieces are you going to be willing to acquire and trade to help this ball club? It needs help. As is, it's a 500 team. It will not succeed. This team is close enough, though, where you can add a piece or two. And then, unfortunately, with the Tigers team, you can't expect greatness. At this point in time, as fans, as people that are talking about the Tigers and commenting, we are hoping that this is going to turn around. It's not a great spot to be in, but as long as you have a little bit of hope, then you have an opportunity to say, okay, the hitting comes back. If the pitching kind of stabilizes, if Fulmer and Norris can evolve in the second half, if the bullpen can be reshaped and retooled just slightly, then maybe, just maybe, you hit the lightning bolt in July and August and you get to the wild card. And all you got to do, like everybody says, just get in. The month of July, probably the biggest month in the history of the organization. And let's see what happens. I'm fascinated to see. But, this week, not a bad week. Playing the Marlins and playing Tampa Bay. And that's all you can look to is rack up some wins, because after this week, oh hell, you're going to play some big boys.
If I told you that the Tigers went either 5-4 or 6-3 on a homestand, you would generally say that's successful because they're above 500. There were more wins in the win column than in the loss column. But the 3 games that they lost to Cleveland put them so far back in this division. It feels like they totally crapped the bed on this homestand.
But don't you see maybe a chance now we play them again?
We do. But here's the issue, all right? You're going to be going on the road. You're going to be going to Tampa. You're going to be going to Cleveland. You're going to be going to Toronto. And then I believe the All-Star break kicks in. You've got a couple series here, but you're going to be on the road for most of this. You've got to sit there and you got to win the series against Tampa. You got to win the series against Cleveland. I don't care if you win 2 out of the 3. You got to win at least 2 against Cleveland. And then you got to go into Toronto, and I'm hopeful that you can sweep the Blue Jays, but even if you split, you got to sit there and you got to win this road trip. And I don't know if they've got the gusto to go into Cleveland and come out with 2 of 3. I just don't see it. And if you look at the way the pitching matchups are supposed to go, you would feel confident. You got Jordan Zimmerman, who up until recently has looked really good. Michael Fulmer, who might be the ace of this staff at this point. You got these 2 guys going. You got Daniel Norris going. You would think that, yeah, this might work out in their favor. I just don't know if the bats can get it done, because every time they seem to go up against Cleveland pitching, they look extremely frustrated.
How would you rank the priority now with this team? Is it the pitching, then the offense, or is it pitching, bullpen, offense? How would you rank the priorities in terms of what needs to be done right now, get it fixed, then we'll have some success?
I think you have to address the starting rotation. The way that the bats are set up, there's so much power there. It just, they have to get going all at the same time. You got a couple guys going here, you got a couple guys going there, and there's these big lulls that occur. But with the way that this pitching rotation is set up, you need to figure out who your fifth starter is. You need to nail down who your fourth starter is. We have a good idea that it's going to go Justin, Jordan, and then Mike. But is Jordan Zimmerman healthy? Is he good? Because since he's come back from that groin injury, he's been so up and down, and he's missing his spots. You know, Verlander had a bad outing. We'll chalk it up as that. I'm willing to say that much. He had a bad outing against Cleveland. I expect him to come back his next game against Tampa Bay and just blow the doors off. Mike Pelfrey, I don't know what he's still doing here. I don't understand it. It's a bad signing. You need to get out from underneath it. You know, if you have to sit there and you got to put Daniel Norris as your fifth starter, Shane Green as your fourth, or flip-flop them, or go out there and pick somebody up at the trade deadline, I'm fine with it. You need to address the starting rotation because then you can sit there, move a piece into your bullpen, get that secured. The bats, I think, will come alive, and I think the bats will be fine. My biggest worry about the bats is if they do get into the playoffs, because this seems to happen to them all the time. As soon as the weather turns a little bit cold, the bats ice up, and they can't hit the ball. I will worry about that when that time comes, but you just have to get into the playoffs in order for me to worry about that.
Yeah, the week that was for the Tigers pitchers was horrid. You got Jordan Zimmerman, Verlander getting rocked. They're not even going 6 innings. And what happens then is the word of the week last week was the taxed bullpen. The bullpen just was so taxed that it just kind of handcuffs Brad Ausmus. I agree with you 100%. The pitching staff needs to be solidified, and even the guys that are there have to do a better job of eating up some innings. You can't get your pitch count into the 60s in the third inning. That just ruins your bullpen. It doesn't allow the team to have any kind of confidence, and it's not good when your offense gives you 6 to 7 runs and you don't compete to win the game. That's not good.
Let me ask you this. If they were to sit there and move Daniel Norris in as their fourth starter, okay, taking Pelfrey out, and you can do whatever you want with Pelfrey. I don't care. Whatever. Chop him up, sell him into pieces, whatever you got to do with him. I don't care. If you were to move Matt Boyd in as your fifth starter, and he has struggled whenever he has come up, he has struggled to give you 5 solid innings. But you know that he'll give you at least 4 innings every time he goes out there, which is more than you know Pelfrey will give you. Would you take it?
See, unfortunately, I would, but the contract situation will dictate that Pelfrey's going to get 6 to 7 more opportunities because he had.
This team can't afford to do that, though.
I know they can't afford
it because they just keep falling back in the Central.
Sometimes the contract situation will dictate what you're doing, and he gets more chances. And he has.
If you're looking to win a World Series, and that's what they're trying to do for Mr. I, I mean, honestly, every time he comes out, he looks like he is a marionette. He just, somebody's pulling the strings and he's dancing because he looks like he's half dead. They pull him out of the mothballs all the time. And if you're trying to win a World Series for this guy, his life is on life support at this point. You need to sit there and do whatever it takes. Contracts shouldn't matter. They should not matter. And again, should and shouldn't, we can debate that all day long. You're right. He probably will get another opportunity or two. He doesn't deserve it at this point.
No, you're exactly right. And so that's what's so challenging talking about the Tigers is that we can come up with 8, 9 different scenarios, and they've tried to tinker. They've tried to do a lot of different things to try to help this ball club. Whatever's happened, whatever they've done, hasn't really worked. And so then, unfortunately, we're getting closer and closer to staring the reality in the face. This team really isn't just that good enough, and there isn't enough pieces. There can't be enough moves. I mean, you literally can't add 4 superstars to this team. That's why I really believe that the hope is fading with a lot of fans, but there are still fans that do have hope that this team will do something. But what has to happen is this group of talent that's there, the majority of them, each of them has to step up their game and really take on leadership roles individually. Everybody's got to do a better job. I don't know if they're subconsciously thinking that they can just turn on a switch, but I'm really hoping that by July and August, this team really starts to put together a little bit more consistency in their play. But just based on what you've seen so far, halfway point in the season, it's not a small sample size. They are a 500 team. And so based on your logical thinking that really with what they're going to do, they're going to shake out to be around a 500 team and miss the postseason. But I'm still not giving up total hope because of the fact they can make moves, and you never know what new chemistry in that locker room will do. And you never know. You never know that if it bottoms out or something changes, they might make a couple moves at the top, might make moves with the manager. Moves are going to be made. Let's just see what they're going to do and reevaluate. But this is going to be an interesting week for the Tigers, playing teams that we're expected to beat.
You know, if they can sit there at the trade deadline, like you said, hover around the wild card, maybe be a game either in front or behind the wild card. I see them going out at the trade deadline, making a move, picking up a pitcher, because that's what is needed at this time. And if that pitcher can come in and give them a shot in the arm, I think at that point we can talk about them maybe making a move to sit there and try to win the Central, making a move to sit there and possibly be title contenders here. The thing is, they've got such an expansive payroll. It's so bloated right now. And like you said, you've got all these aging veterans on this team. What do you do? How do you sit there and how do you try to balance the future with trying to win it all right now? And that's where Al Avila is. And that's why I think this team is kind of struggling. They're a little bit hamstrung because you've got so much money dedicated to a guy like a Justin Verlander, a Miguel Cabrera. Ian Kinsler has a nice contract. Victor Martinez has a very healthy contract. Jordan Zimmerman has a healthy contract as well. So you've got all this money going out to these couple of guys. How do you sit there and balance the best lineup and put pieces in there to sit there and help you win and give you that shot in the arm to sit there and go for it all? I don't know if it's going to happen. Like I said, I feel really upset and feel really dirty telling you that you might be right on this.
Yes, sir. Doc's always right. You know that.
Lies.
Stay with us after the break. We'll talk a little bit of positivity. An individual who I came across just yesterday on Twitter, sports photographer, takes pictures and is a sports photographer that works out of Detroit. I'm very fascinated to get to know interesting people. Mike Mulholland next on Detroit Sports Podcast, Doc and Jock, episode 151.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain, break the whole damn table.
From time to time, after a Tigers game, I like to go on Twitter and surf around, see what people's reactions are to the latest game. Last evening, Adam, I was going around and I saw a tweet from Tony Paul, and he basically said that if you don't follow this cat on Twitter, you're missing out. Mike Mulholland is on the Detroit Sports Podcast. He is a sports photographer based out of Detroit. He takes awesome pictures. You got to go check out his Twitter page. And Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Now, your photographs are really amazing. How did you get into that business? Did you always want to be a sports photographer?
Actually, I kind of grew up on the west side of the state and never really was into sports that much. I mean, I ran cross country and track, so if you want to call those sports, go right ahead. But just kind of grew into it with college, and it was convenient with my schedule to work on Friday night football games and Saturday college games. So I kind of just fell into my lap, and next thing you know, a couple years later, here I am.
So what is it exactly that you do currently?
I am the sports photographer for MLIVE Media Group, so MLive.com. I shoot all the Detroit teams, plus Michigan State and Michigan, plus any high school state final stuff.
Very interesting. Now, one photo that I came across that was absolutely fabulous, and I want to know how you came about to get it, was you have a snapshot of Comerica Park at sunset. It's just an absolutely beautiful photograph, and one that when you look at it, it just elicits a feeling of calmness and really tranquility. It's really a great photo. I give you all credit. How did that, whereabouts did you get that photo from?
Yeah, it's actually part of a ballpark sunset project that I've been working on over the course of the last 3 seasons, I think. It started out just as me being bored at the ballpark and some blowout win that they had, and decided to wander around the park and kind of take advantage of the views that Comerica has, because it's a great park to be a part of, especially every day. And, I don't think there's a bad seat in the house. And so yesterday, sometime in the 5th inning, when they went on that 7-0 run in those home runs, I decided, screw it, I'm going to wander around, and had my spot. The clouds were leaving, so I decided, here I go, and raced to the elevator, got up to the 300 level really quick, and shot about 100 different photos on my iPhone, and picked that one, and it was a nice one. I liked it.
Mike, what makes for the most challenging aspect of your job?
The anticipation. I mean, you've got to learn not just every sport you cover, but every athlete you cover. You have to know where Castellanos is going. You have to know where Iglesias is going, and whether Cabrera is going to, if he's in a slump, whether you're going to be inside home plate, out at first. It's all in placement and anticipating what's going to happen next. And I mean, you've got to be on all the time and just be prepared to shoot anything that's in front of you. And it gets to be mentally draining after a while. And beer tastes pretty well after a hot game.
Are these? Of course it does. It tastes good during a hot game. Are these skills that you've honed throughout your career working as a photographer? Is it difficult not being a sports fan, like you said? Is it harder to sit there and try to learn that anticipation and grasp that anticipation, not sitting there playing the games or being a Tigers fan, or not even, I shouldn't say a Tigers fan, but being a baseball fan?
I think it's actually easier because you're learning, if you were a player, say I grew up playing baseball, your anticipation is as a player at that point, not from the sideline and knowing where to be, versus me, you're kind of learning everything on the fly. So you're learning it through the eyes of a photographer, not a player or a fan. So you're kind of learning the game as it goes in front of you and you're shooting it. So I think it's kind of helped me to not be emotionally invested in the teams. Granted, that changed in college. I started to become a big fan of all the Detroit teams because I had a little bit more time to come to games and things. But I think it's kind of helped me to not be invested in the losses or the wins or anything like that. You kind of just take it for what's in front of you.
Mike Mulholland, MLIVE Sports Photographer. You can follow him on Twitter at MULHO2MJ. Check out his great pictures. Now, what's been one or two of your favorite sporting events that you've covered, or one or two of your favorite shots that you've captured?
Event-wise, I think it was the Rose Bowl in 2014. My first season, or my first real season on this job, was covering Michigan State's awesome run to the Rose Bowl and their win. And going out there was really cool, especially since they hadn't been in so long. And then the other one would probably be something about the Cotton Bowl / Lions playoff game down in Dallas. I basically lived in Texas for like 2 weeks doing all that, and that's been a really cool experience. And I would even add the Final Four for Michigan State in 2015. That was a fun run. The year before you're expecting them to go win it all, and the next year they go and have that fun run. And it was cool to kind of follow them along. Kind of dropped the ball this year, but that happens. Photo-wise, I had one of those ballpark sunset photos a couple weeks ago of Cabrera kind of waiting on deck and the sun setting in front of him, and I was behind him, and that kind of went crazy. And I've had a lot of print requests, and I've got a big old print of it at our house now that I don't know, it was really, really kind of fun to shoot. And I have a big Kelvin Johnson photo that from Thanksgiving, I think it was, when they played the Eagles. He had a big diving catch for a touchdown, and I ended up squatting down real quick and followed the play, and next thing you know, he's right in front of me, and I have a pretty cool sprawling out catch. I mean, another one would probably be the Van Gundy photo that kind of went viral with the Notorious rapper and all that Notorious SVG and everything. So that was a fun one, except it continues to haunt me.
Now, is there an event or a certain athlete that you just can't wait to cover, or are really looking to make a milestone event out of?
I would like to shoot the Olympics and any athlete in there. But soaking in every day with shooting Miguel Cabrera is a lot of fun. I certainly do not take it for granted. Any at bat, I'm there watching him, and I'm trying to soak in being able to cover him
Now, as a Metro Detroiter, how do you feel about these Tigers right now sitting at 39 and 38, right in, smack dab in the middle of the season? A lot of fans are going either or, just based on that series versus Cleveland, knowing that a little bit of hope on the fact that they could make a couple moves at the trade deadline. How do you feel about your current Detroit Tigers 2016 version?
If they don't make a move, I think they're doomed. And something's got to happen with Pelfrey here. His confidence level is pretty much that of me at a middle school dance, also known as non-existent. They got to make a move, and it's make or break time, because I know a lot of people are frustrated. And being on the field, you can tell that there's a little bit of frustration when they're getting blown out against the Indians, and something's due here, good or bad.
In town, what's your favorite venue? What's your favorite place to shoot pictures at?
Let's see. I got to go on record and say that I hate shooting at the Joe, but I really like shooting at Comerica, and the Palace is fun too, except for the long drive out there. And I'm looking forward to shooting at the new stadium, but I would say Comerica is definitely the most fun.
Mike Mulholland, kind enough to give us a few minutes. Sports photographer for the MLIVE group. Definitely give him a follow at MULHO2MJ. Mike, enjoy today's game. Hopefully you bring him some good luck, take some great photos, and like I said, we'll feature some of your stuff. I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anytime you want to come on, feel free.
All right, thanks.
Very interesting cat, interesting individual. Works for MLive, Mike Mulholland. Yeah, definitely check out his Twitter page. He's got a lot of great Twitter photos, really high quality. And like you said, he's a guy that works for MLive, and he's out there snapping photos. And did you know that Kevin Durant tried to do that at the Super Bowl? He was out there with that big long lens photographer, with that big long lens camera, and he was out there trying to shoot photos. I kind of like it in that it's a nice, interesting way of being part of the action, trying to find that interesting shot. And there are at least 6 amazing photos that have really stood the test of time in sports. One of them, obviously, is the Muhammad Ali photo, him standing over Sonny Liston, like, yeah. There are so many iconic photos, and so we don't take for granted the individuals that are taking the photos. So Mike does a great job, and I'm thankful that Tony Paul tweeted out there. That's how I found him.
Yeah, he's got a lot of beautiful work, and like you said, you can see it all on his Twitter page.
Just on the stuff you're browsing now, what caught your eye?
It's really difficult to do what he does. I'm going to be honest with you. It's really hard. I tried doing it at a Tiger game once, sitting in the stands, and probably took about 45 pictures. I got 3 that were worth a damn. So it's a little bit difficult. The one that you were talking about from the other night, where he took just the skyline with the ballpark. It's only about it's right behind a foul pole, and it's right there along the third base side. It's about half of the ballpark there. Just the sky in contrast with what's going on in the stadium and the way the field looks, just the greenness of the grass. It just the contrasting colors is amazing. So I really like that one.
Have you ever snapped like photos at a game or anything that you really look to on your phone that you go, wow, you kind of look back on?
Photography is not my. I have an internal tremor, so I tend to shake a little bit. I have a real nice camera for taking photos, and there were a couple times when I was working as a journalist there, writing and doing sports reporting, that they wanted you to take pictures for your own work. So you'd have to go down to the field, and while things were going on, I had a couple real good ones where I was kneeled down in a corner of the end zone, taking photos of guys lunging into the end zone. That was pretty cool. A couple, like I said, at the Tiger game. The 3 I got at the Tiger game were really nice because they're action photos. You can see, I believe it was Rick Porcello was pitching. You can see Porcello sitting there and winding up and then unwinding and throwing the ball. It was really cool. And you could see one, I think, of Miguel Cabrera hitting the ball. So those are cool. Those are ones that I really like. Otherwise, like I said, I'm brutal at taking pictures.
All right, now I know you have a great round of docs in session. I'm very interested. I'll make it quicker because we had that great interview, but I'm very fascinated to hear what you got for me. I'm ready to give some strong opinions in what we call Doctor is in session.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I'm saying, woo, right here, I'm the man. Woo!
Whoa, did you see that tweet I sent out with that new Iranian young wrestler?
That dude's huge.
What was your first reaction when you saw that?
I was like, he's a behemoth.
There are behemoths out there, but if you go out there and look at our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, there's this unbelievable young Iranian dude. And it's not that he's a behemoth. It's just that he's so top heavy. He literally looks like a human Incredible Hulk. That's all I'm going to say. And he's like he's beefy. And I was just like, you know what? Make him the world champion.
Here's the deal. John Cena's a big dude. John Cena looks like he is chiseled out of granite. And if you ever watched John Cena work out, it's amazing what that guy can do. This dude is like 1.5 times the size of John Cena. Like, he's that big. He's huge. All right, getting into the Doxson session here. What are your overall thoughts on the Pistons draft?
You know what?
Besides being surprised that they took a white guy.
I was very surprised they took Ellenson. But here's the deal. We all wanted Denzel Valentine, and of course, we all knew that likely he was going to be drafted a little bit before pick 18. So, since the draft has occurred, a lot of people have said, listen, when you look at the entire 2016 draft class as a whole, it doesn't shake out to be, that there are too many impactful guys that are going to come in, especially at 18. It's not like last year where at pick 8 you can get a guy like Stanley Johnson. He can come in and do some things. So most of the guys that you could have picked up were going to be projects. Ellenson is a dude that a lot of people thought was going to be a top 15 pick and even a top 10 pick. So when he fell, it became a natural pick and selection, I guess, based on what SVG said, that he's going to be a guy that we can work on to develop and be, a 4 or 5 for this team. Now, the only weaknesses that you see is that he kind of lacks really foot speed and athleticism, but is a guy that can develop a shot, that can be a post presence, and a lot of people are saying that he could be like Greg Monroe, but with a shot, and he can develop into that. And so the only aspect of the draft that I don't like is kind of this pervasive now attitude of the Pistons, like, we don't need, a guy to come in right away. I'm like, are you kidding me? Yes, you do. You needed to find the best guy available to help this team. You're only an 8 seed. You got swept in the postseason.
But didn't they do that? This guy was projected to go somewhere in the top 8. And he fell to them at 18.
For this season coming up, he's only going to play 12, 15 minutes tops a game.
Right, but at 18, what are you actually looking to get? You're at the bottom half of the draft.
So what I'm saying is potentially you could have been more aggressive, maybe move up to move up with the Bulls, have a little bit more aggressiveness, maybe go out and get Denzel Valentine because he's a guy that can come in and do more things. So the attitude with the Pistons is like, okay, we're making that steady climb, and I'm like, you know what? There's no rule against skipping a couple steps, and I think that with a Denzel Valentine, you could have maybe gotten there faster because I really believe their goal is to be a top 4 team and win some rounds in the postseason. With the team as constructed, I'm not sure because, it's a shooting team. It's a team that has to kind of gel and do some things late, and I'm not sure with that mix that they even take that next step. We're hoping. Everyone is really confident with the Pistons based on what they're seeing, but you right now you can't guarantee that this team's going to be in the top 4 and win a round in the postseason. You got a guy that's a project that has to do some work, so I'm very fascinated to see what he does in the summer league. The point guard from Syracuse, he's okay. I kind of thought that if you're going to pass on Kay Felder in the first go around, why not get him in the second round? You passed on him twice, so he ends up in Cleveland. But in a situation where you had a guy that I thought was NBA ready, he could have been a guy that you could have even developed and had some talent that we saw at least. But like I said, a program like Syracuse hasn't tended to put out a lot of great players in recent years. But this is a guy that had some Final Four experience and could be a guy that could be a backup. I still think they're going to go out.
He got better every year that he played as well, and he was a senior. So you're getting a more physically matured commodity, and like I said, he's gotten better every single year.
So I give the draft B+. Solid.
What are your thoughts on Deontay Davis sitting there tumbling, just falling like a rock out of the sky, especially as a Michigan State alum?
Yeah, it was quite a surprise that he fell out of the first round. You feel bad for a kid like that because he probably would have been a lottery pick, no doubt, had he stayed one more year. And it just goes to show that you really need to listen to the coaches and not maybe to your handlers and your agents. The thing that really kind of got to me, that bugged me, was a lot of people were talking about, this is a guy that's laid back and has a meek personality, and based on his interviews, teams probably felt like he wasn't that great. I'm like, yeah, you can be a shy guy, but I don't think that's really the reason why he slipped to the second round. I think that he's raw, and I think that he needed to be a little bit more seasoned, and I think teams, when they evaluated him, felt like this is a guy that's going to take a little bit longer than most of the projects, so he slipped to the second round. Deontay Davis is one of those cases, cautionary tale. If you're a guy that needs that one more year, he would have been the feature guy in this 2016 team for Michigan State, and they would have had success. He would have made more money. But on the other spectrum, second rounder Draymond Green. I like this for potentially Deontay Davis in that it's going to give him a little bit of extra hunger, a little bit of extra motivation, in that you know, he's going to be a free agent sooner. He's not going to be locked into a 4 or 5 year deal. He might have an opportunity now. Work hard, get your skills up. In 2 or 3 years, now the cap goes up. You're a free agent. You show some skill, you'll be making at least $8 million minimum, and you won't have to be locked into your team for 4 years. So it has its advantages, it has its disadvantages, but I do think that for him, if he uses it properly, if he wakes up every day pissed off that the entire NBA waved on him one time, then he can become a player like a Draymond Green, really hustle, and you can earn big money in a couple years. Just wait a couple years, work hard, just like in any situation. You work hard, you grind, you build yourself up, and the riches will come. And I think it's going to happen for Deontay Davis. And it might not have happened had he been drafted 10. This is a good thing for him. I think it'll shake out.
The lightning rod of the Detroit Lions, Matthew Stafford, Pro Football Focus has him listed as the 4th worst contract behind the likes of Eli Manning, number 1, Joe Flacco, number 2, Tony Romo, number 3, and then your boy Matthew Stafford as number 4. Pro Football Focus says Matthew Stafford has produced an up-and-down career, and that continues to be true in 2015. After 5 weeks in the 2015 season, he was by far the lowest-graded quarterback in the NFL. From week 6 on, he was just outside the top 10 in passing grades. If Stafford was able to maintain the momentum he gained from a solid 2013 season, then his contract makes sense. But since then, we've seen more bad out of Stafford than good. If he keeps up his recent inconsistencies, then he deserves to be paid like an average quarterback rather than a top 10 quarterback. And there's a big difference between how those two kinds of quarterbacks should be compensated. Stafford's contract isn't as bad as some others at the top of the list thanks to his very recent good play, his younger age, and the fact that the Lions could cut him next year if they really want to, even though it looks like they're going to leave some dead money on the table. What are your thoughts on Pro Football Focus analysis, and do you agree or disagree with it?
Very well done. Spot on. The interesting fact about Matthew Stafford is when you look at it, it's like one of those situations where you're going to get really excited and hopeful, or you're going to get really upset based upon his contract and what he's produced. Matthew Stafford is a young gunslinger with all the intangibles. He's got an arm. He's a guy that, you know, after a couple years of injury-plagued seasons has been a gamer and is a guy that is firmly planted as the leader of the Lions. They're building the franchise around him. And by all accounts in the community, as a human being, he's a stand-up dude, a very good guy, does a lot for the Detroit community. Now, that's one aspect. He's not a troublemaker. He's not doing things to hurt himself. Now, on the other aspect is what has he done on the field? The 2015 season is a perfect microcosm of Matthew Stafford. The first 5 games when it mattered, inconsistent, throwing bad interceptions, not winning, you know, looking awful, looking like a guy that doesn't even belong in the NFL. Then the schedule kind of shakes out weekly, and now he's the MVP. He's running this offense. They make a move at the offensive coordinator spot. They bring in a guy maybe more suited to his liking, and he looks like a guy that can handle his business. So who's the real Matthew Stafford? We're all left scratching our heads.
Will the real Matt Stafford please stand up? Stand up.
And I think this might be the real Matthew Stafford, and that maybe I think in sports, when we talk about it, we're always expecting movement. Is he going to get better? Is he going to get worse? And
The
I think
trajectory that I always talk about, that upward progress.
And I think the word I'm going to use for Matthew Stafford to describe him, flatline. This is what he is. This is a guy.
He has plateaued, huh?
He has plateaued. This is what he is. I don't see him getting that much better. I don't see him getting that much worse. So what do I see in terms of Matthew Stafford? What's Doc's scouting report on Matthew Stafford? Decent quarterback, needs a lot of help around him to win. Not a guy late in the fourth quarter I trust to get me the win. So with that being said, they're trying their absolute best to surround him with as much talent as possible. So I think then the star next to his name will be, with some help, what can he do? And I do believe give him an offensive line, give him a semi-above average running game. This is a guy that can get you some playoff wins, but as a quarterback, he will not get to the Super Bowl, and he will not ever win a Super Bowl. And not with the Lions. He'll be a guy that just does enough to keep everybody either pissed or happy with him. He's going to be exactly where he's at right now. Flatline, plateaued. He's going to do some things. He'll make some throws and make you go, wow. But I don't like this narrative right now that the Lions are putting out that Calvin's gone. Now our offense can be a little bit more unpredictable. Are you kidding me? It could have been more unpredictable with Calvin Johnson. Are you kidding me now? No, now these defenses don't have to lock in on anybody. They can lock in on Golden Tate and take away. They can dictate more than the Lions can. Are you kidding me? With Calvin Johnson there on the field, he could have spread the ball all over the place. Now you're in a situation where Calvin's not there. Defenses aren't going to respect this core group of wide receivers. Are you kidding me right now? So to come out here and tell us that you have a chance to be better without Calvin, that's going to be tough. You're going to have to go out there and prove it, because the last time you lost a key member of your team in Ndamukong Suh, your defense took a step back. Matthew Stafford, I don't believe, is going to really gain any more skills than he has. The skill set that he has is just good enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, just not good enough to be elite.
And in 2 straight years, they lost Pro Bowl talent on either side of the line there. That doesn't help. In summation, Matt Stafford is the facts of life. You take the good, you take the bad, you got the facts of life.
And he's going to be paid a boatload of money in this NFL.
He's going to cash in big.
He's the beneficiary of the Lions organization. He's going to cash
That's
huge
exactly
checks.
what that is.
Now, are we being
Best quarterback we've ever had. You got to pay him like he's a top 5 quarterback. No, you don't.
So how would you rate my analysis? Am I
You're spot on, bro. You're spot on.
It's what it is.
He's up and down. He's way too inconsistent. There are games where he will dazzle you and he will look like an MVP in this league. And then there are other games where you're just scratching your head and you're screaming at your TV because he makes a bonehead play. And then what you have to look at on the sideline is him with his mutton chops and his baby fat face. And you're just like, what's going on? He doesn't make the incredible faces that Eli Manning makes when he's on the sideline, but he's second. You're just like, what the hell are you doing? All right, let's move on. Something a little bit more, I guess, fun for some. This is a very selfish question for me and for you, because we're both soccernistas. We both enjoy football. After a disappointing Copa America for Argentina, Argentinian striker Lionel Messi made an emotional exclamation stating that he will never wear an Argentinian jersey ever again. 1, do you believe him? And have you ever made an emotional decision? And if so, what was it?
For all the success that Messi's had at the club level, he has had some epic failures in terms of his career with Argentina. I mean, losing the World Cup final had to hurt. Losing consecutive Copa finals has to hurt. He just really hasn't had that much success.
He's like the best player in the world, too. I mean, we can debate whether or not Ronaldo's better or if Messi's better. I'm going to take Messi all day long, even though he always seems to lose on the biggest stage.
And in the Copa, you could see he was trying his absolute hardest, was running for every ball. He put a lot into it. And so there's been some rumblings that he's not exactly happy with the Argentinian club and their organization and things like that. But I really believe he did make an emotional decision because, it's a tough loss. And then compounded with the fact that he had a part in it. That penalty kick situation, you can't go out there and miss. You have to make the goalie block it. You can't go out there and miss the net entirely, especially for a guy of his caliber. Ooh, the bar basically went silent. I was at the Red Fox Tavern in Royal Oak. That's where I watched it at.
Look at you, fancy.
It was nice. It was very nice.
Did you get a burger?
A lot of people like the burgers there. No, I'm trying to eat healthy, so I just grab a Guinness. That's what I do. Just go down.
Just grab the Guinness.
Just drank a couple Guinnesses, and that's it. No food.
I basically drank my dinner.
That's
just
right.
A Guinness.
Dude, the food there is so rich. I think I would have walked out gaining 5 pounds. The food there is good. I've eaten there quite a bit. The food there at the Red Fox is really great. But the beer selection is unbelievable, too. If you're a fan of, drafts and European-style beers, IPAs, Red Fox is where it's at. But Messi goes up there, misses that penalty kick. Chile goes on to win the game, and he was in tears. And then the tough part is, as a soccer player, when you lose a championship game like that in a competition, you get to watch the other team celebrate and dance, and you're standing there watching them, and you see him crying. It's just so intense. So I believe that that he felt the pain of the loss really greatly, and I don't blame him at all for leaving whatsoever. Now, in terms of me and emotional decisions, not too often that I can recall where it impacted me greatly. Yeah, I've been an emotional guy playing tennis, working with people sometimes that you don't get along with or that you disagree with, but nothing to where it was so, that caused irreparable harm. You flip out, you lash out, and you go, oh, sorry, I just reacted stupidly, and generally I'm a nice guy, so people forgive me. So thinking emotionally, I don't think in the last 6 years I've made a really awful emotional decision. Just lose your temper from time to time like everybody else, but nothing to the point where I got my face clocked in or nothing that pissed anybody off, because I'm just a nice guy. I generally calm down quickly. Really nowadays, though, recently I've had a rash of people just flicking me off on the road, and it's pissing me off because I've been ticketed.
Are you a bad driver?
Yes.
He's like, yes.
I've been ticketed quite a bit for speeding, So now I'm the guy that's like, even though there might be free traffic, I'm slowing down, stopping to a zero, completely at a red light. I'm driving pretty much relatively close to the speed limit. You know, when you have kids, you don't want to get in trouble with that, with driving or nothing. So now I'm getting a rash of people that are riding up on my ass. They're driving around me, flicking me off, giving me dirty looks almost, every single day. And one time the thought popped in my mind to just, slow down or be a jerk driver and intentionally, speed around them and then slow down. But I've never done it. I've had those thoughts, but these Michigan drivers out here, I don't know if they're going to pull out a shotgun and blow my windows out. I don't know if you've seen that video, but I don't know what these drivers are capable of doing. So I'm just going to let everybody flick me off and drive much faster than me, and I'll be around. That's what I do.
So you don't expect, besides you having a really bad driving experiences and record there, you don't expect Messi to play in about a month's time for the Olympics for Argentina?
Man, I don't know. If I weighed the options to go to Rio and potentially risk getting Zika, I wouldn't do it. I don't know. These athletes that are going are really risking it, and there's a lot of athletes that have pulled out, but I think that it doesn't take a month time to recover from what he said. If he does come back, it'll be maybe next year's Copa.
All right. That's all I got for you for the King of the Couch here.
Bada boom! Realest guys in the room! How you doing?
That's how it's done, sir. You like that?
How you doing?
Succinct, to the point, and hopefully not too monotone, Mr. Kenny.
He's always busting your balls.
Oh, man, non-stop. That's why I like doing it. I do it each and every day, trying to impress Kenny, trying to impress those who say that I suck or that don't like what I'm doing. But, hey, we created this thing, so might as well do it however we want.
Right.
That's right, sir.
That's right.
All right, let's take another timeout, our last one of this episode, and get into your Red Wings. I know you're excited. It had to be a great day for you when you realized what Kenny Holland was able to pull off, who we got, and maybe, just maybe, in 5 years' time, we got the enforcer of the future.
5 years' time.
We shall see. Stay with us. Doc and Jock, episode 151. I want to tell everyone out there about DetroitSportsNation.com. They're a great website, and they've been very supportive to all the shows on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. They host all the podcasts. They have great writers that cover all the Detroit teams, all the college teams. Check out their website and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com. The collaboration has been excellent, and it's helped us to continue to grow and have great guests, take phone calls. So our collaboration with the Detroit Sports Nation has really been successful, and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com. Yes, sir, Cousin Adam. The NHL draft came and went, and our guy, we're back on his bandwagon. Kenny Holland is allowed now to be spoken in positive light. He made a great trade with Arizona, was able to really, relieve us of the contract of Pavel Datsyuk, pick up another draft player, and his draft overall was very solid. Young guys, young solid guys to improve this team. We'll see how it shakes out in the future, but overall, I'm happy with what he did. Just being able to move Datsyuk's contract frees yourself up to be able to go out and maybe get some guys to help this team. What's going to be really telling and what we'll discuss further is, what does he do? Who does he spend that extra money on? That'll be the key. That'll be probably weighted more than the draft, but he put himself in position. He put the Red Wings organization in position to make moves to help this team. All in all, great night. I know you were happy. You tweeted Detroit Podcast and was like, very good move. I'm happy.
Yeah, for a couple different reasons, too. Because him moving the Datsyuk contract and basically Jedi mind tricking the Coyotes general manager. These are not the draft picks you want. You totally want this sabotaged contract. Please take this away, and we'll flip-flop draft picks. What he ended up doing was he was able to get the draft pick that he wanted. Originally, the player that he took with the 20th pick is the guy that he wanted originally. Now, the player that Phoenix took at 16, he might grow up to be a stud. If you look at everything about him, he looks like he's going to be pretty incredible. But that being said, take some time, some development. We'll see what happens. Phoenix has a bad habit of basically be giving a golden bar and turning it into poop. So we'll see what happens there. But Detroit and Ken Holland performed basically a miracle. Ended up picking up an extra draft pick. And then he sits there and gets a player, which he probably won't even have to pay for because it looks like he's going to be IR'd. So Ken Holland made a wizard of a move. It was incredible what he did on draft day. On top of that, going through looking at his draft, you think we're a little bit light on defensemen? You think we need some defensemen? Because they had overall 7 picks, and 4 out of the 7 picks were all defensemen. You know, they picked up 2 forwards and a goaltender as well. So nice draft. We'll see what the fruits bear. I love the move that Ken Holland did, because now what it does is it opens you up for some flexibility to go out and sign some free agents. And there's already some conversations being stirred up that the Wings are going to go and try to get probably the 2 top guys in this free agency class. A guy like Steven Stamkos, who, if you go and you look, I was kind of on the fence. I was like, all right, well, if they don't get Stamkos, because I have a feeling they're going to swing and miss, and I'll tell you why in a moment. If they get Kyle Oposo and we'll say a guy like Milan Lucic, as long as you don't overpay for Lucic, I'm okay with it. You know, you'll sit there and you'll get some nice balance there. If you really look at what Steven Stamkos can do, though, it's amazing. There is nobody in this draft class who is even close to this guy. The way he scores the puck and the way he creates and just the way he is on the ice, he is magical. Nobody in this free agency class is even close. That being said, I don't think the Wings are going to get Stamkos. That being said, that leaves a couple guys out there for you to get. Milan Lucic, I think he would be a great fit. He gives you that a little bit of grit up front. He's a nasty player. The guy plays with an attitude, something this team needs. He can score big goals. He has had moments that are huge, and he's come up big in them. A guy like a Kyle Oposo, I like him. I liked him last year when we did we talked about the trade deadline podcast. Kyle Oposo was a guy that I wanted the Wings to trade for. He can score. He can make assists. He's a winger, so he'll help you out with your left wing. I like what he brings to this team. There's other guys out there like Andrew Ladd, another guy I wanted last year at the trade deadline. Troy Brower's out there. What they really need to do is they need to somehow address their defense. Not a lot of good free agents out there to sit there to pick and pop and try to get. You will end up overpaying for a defenseman. So best bet, maybe for Ken Holland, after he gets his forward situated, reevaluate his team, look at what he's got, and then maybe go make a trade.
Now, do you think that the fans of Detroit are putting all their eggs in one basket? Steven Stamkos, they know that the Wings have positioned themselves financially in order to get him. But should they not get him, do you think the fans will be devastated and will accept whatever backup moves? Because I really believe that the fans are really not only looking to Stamkos to sign with the Red Wings, they're looking at it as a way to evaluate the status of the club. Like, okay, are we back to being like an elite team that where players want to come? Whereas another superstar kind of passes on Detroit, it might, devastate some fans and really thinking that, you know what, the Wings just aren't a destination anymore that free agents are going to want to come to. And you're going to have to look at, you know what, we might not be able to bring in that top A class free agent anymore. We're just going to have to grow our own talent.
Well, you go out and you get a guy like Steven Stamkos. I think that right there automatically validates whatever team it is. If Toronto goes and gets him, automatically validates them. And you're right, it does make it a little bit easier for you to go out and get other free agents and get other people in. That being said, I don't think Detroit fans should take it to heart if he doesn't come here. You have to look at what Toronto is doing. Also realize he's from that area. He probably grew up a Leafs fan. I'm not 100% sure if he did or not. But the Wings have the ability right now with their cap space to be able to go out and pick up a few good pieces to really help this team. Also, I don't think that the way that this team is currently constructed, just with what they have going on with their goaltending, what they have going on with their defense, I don't think they're ready to sit there and necessarily challenge for a Stanley Cup next year. I think what you're looking at is maybe a 2-year reboot. I think they'll be a lot better if they can get a couple free agents. But what you're going to be looking for is the following year. Hopefully, there's some good defensemen that come available on the free agent market. Maybe you can trade for a guy or two, and that'll really help bolster this team. You got to figure out what you're going to end up doing with Peter Mrazek. You got to figure out what you're going to end up doing with Jimmy Howard. There's talks that they possibly will leave Jimmy Howard exposed in the expansion draft, which I think would probably be the best idea. Jimmy Howard has come out and said that he's willing to be traded. Going into draft day, I thought maybe they could swing a deal with Calgary, trade Jimmy Howard. You can sit there and try to work on something, go and get a free agent piece and sit there and use him as your backup. Let Peter be your starter. And right there, you just moved a whole bunch of cap space and you opened up the books even more. Didn't happen. We'll see what happens as this offseason kind of progresses along. But at this point, I think Detroit fans need to believe in Ken Holland again.
Really?
You have to at this point. What he was able to do on draft day, moving that contract, moving down only four places, picking up an additional draft pick and a player who's on the cheap. You got to look at it and say that's incredible. It's incredible.
Wow. Okay. I give him credit for making it happen, given the fact that it was kind of talked about and speculated that he wasn't going to make that move. And then, the devastating impact of having that number, not being able to go out maybe and getting a guy like Stamkos. But you said it. If they don't go out and get Stamkos, there are other guys that they can get potentially to fill that role. So it's going to be incumbent upon him to actually go out and get guys that will contribute, because the recent classes, 2-3 years of free agents that he's brought in, has left a lot of people upset and a lot of people wondering, like, you spent that much money on him? You spent that money on what? And the moves that he's basically, the overall attitude at the trade deadline has been relatively conservative. So they've gone in with the teams that a lot of people are like, well, I'm not really confident in. So I'm hoping that the moves that he does make, if we don't get Stamkos, then he can potentially, really regain the trust of a lot of fans in Detroit and really help this team get to where it needs to go.
Don't be surprised if he goes out there, picks up 2, maybe 3 guys out of the free agent crop that's out there, one of them not being Stamkos. And then don't be surprised if he turns around and trades a guy like a Gus Nyquist, maybe even a Thomas Tatar, or somebody else to go and get a defenseman to really help solidify that back line, because that defense is porous and it's not very good. Don't be surprised if any of this happens.
So which Red Wing that was drafted impressed you the most? Is it defenseman Cholowski? Is it Giovanni Smith? Who in the draft really caught your eye and think could be an impactful Red Wing sooner rather than later?
I know you loved the Smith pick, because you sent me a text message the moment that pick was ran up to the board.
Now, was I wrong to think in that manner along those lines? I'm going to be honest. I'll put it out there. I thought, okay, dude, they signed an African-American dude that could be a big, strong dude that can knock people the fuck out.
That'd be awesome.
Brother.
We got a brother.
I'm like, yes. Now, Sidney Crosby, you want to come in here and start crying? Boom, eat some of this sandwich. And so then I looked into it. We've drafted African-American players before. Not one yet stepped on the ice for the Red Wings. So if Giovanni Smith can come out there, do you think it's wrong to think that maybe he can also maybe be the badass dude that can maybe also bring in a different type of fan in Detroit, maybe bring in the African-American community and be a thuggish kind of player?
What are you talking about? Everything that you just said just drips with racist overtones.
Wait, okay, well, no, start with this. Do you think African-Americans like the Red Wings?
Yes.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Because in my neighborhood, and I live in a predominantly black neighborhood, I see people wearing Red Wing hats all the time. All the time.
Okay.
So I do believe that black people do like hockey.
Okay.
And I do believe that black people like the Red Wings.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things. With the draft class, trying to move away from the hole that you just set for me, I like the first 2 picks overall. I do like what Giovanni Smith brings. He plays in the league. He plays in the OHL. So that league basically tailor makes you ready to make that next jump to the AHL. So I think that he'll be on his way probably sooner than most. Dennis Cholowski, he looks like he's going to be solid. The one thing that the Wings said about him is he's probably the best skating defenseman in this draft, and that's what they like. If you look at what Nick Lidstrom was, best skating defenseman in his class, that's what they like. That's what they want to do. Not going to throw the body around a lot, but he will move the puck and he will skate with the puck and he will create offensive chances. And yes, black people do like hockey.
I didn't say they don't. I'm saying in masses. I would disagree that in masses, African
Do they
Americans
tend to like basketball more than hockey? Duh.
Yeah.
We don't need a science experiment to prove that.
Let me rephrase it then.
Okay.
Will
Will he bring more black viewers to the Wings games?
Will they be in attendance at the Wings games?
I think that might make it more possible.
Okay.
Okay.
Because if you go to the Joe Louis Arena, I'm sure if you look around, not too many African Americans in the stands.
Next time I go to a Wings game, I'm going to find
Go interview them.
whatever black people are there, and I'm going to take pictures with them.
That's
I'm
right.
Just take a picture with me.
Exactly. Say, no. I think it's all around a good thing, and we're just, really kidding around. But I like the fact that he's coming in, too, and he's embracing it. He said, hey, I'm a strong-willed defenseman. I'm going to grow into size, and I know my role will be to mess some people up. And I think fans of Detroit would love to see that.
Alphonse Malmström, he's a defenseman out of Sweden. He looks like he could be a big drink of water, too, once he finishes growing. He's a young kid. He's only 6'2", 190 pounds, so he's still got a little bit that he can sit there and fill out. Maybe in the end be 6'4", and you figure if he's carrying around a solid frame, maybe 6'4", 220, 230, That's a big dude, especially when he's barreling down on you. So interesting. I think it was a good draft.
You're happy.
I'm happy.
Now the further evaluation will be who he signs. Because if he goes out there and makes some moves that, are questionable, if he goes out there and gets third and fourth tier guys, I don't know. You got to remember, you can't charge $150 a ducat for a new stadium and you're bringing guys that are not really talented. I think this Stamkos move is really, really important, not only for the perception of the club, for the success of them going forward in the 2016 season, to bring in other free agents. And remember, if you bring in a guy like Steven Stamkos, you're going to have success. I do believe him and Larkin can really play well together, and maybe, just maybe, you can add some pieces that will get you farther in the postseason, close out the Joe with an epic season, and enter the new arena with a marquee guy, because Larkin's only 20. I mean, come on now. You can't market him for another 2-3 years where he's going to reach his peak at least. So, and he can't just be the only guy putting the puck in the net.
I think the ceiling's the sky's the ceiling for him.
But no
His
concern with
potential.
Stamkos on the other spectrum of his injuries, blood clots, any worries at all that he might listen. $10 million a year. And I was talking to Jason about it too. We need 40 goals a year. We need production. You can't come in here, soak up $10 million.
You can take out insurances on that. So if in case that happens, the team can protect itself. I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
He
will produce. He comes. He will produce.
He will produce.
Okay.
Especially if you pair him with the line that you were kicking around there, he has to produce. The only thing I don't like about Stamkos is he's not the best at being creative with the puck. He's more of a goal scorer than a setup guy.
Sniper.
So that being said, that puts a lot of onus on a guy like a Dylan Larkin to sit there and try to create for Steven Stamkos, because Abdelkader's not an assist machine either. He's more of a, go to the front of the net and try to poke the puck in kind of guy. So that's my only question right there. It's my only concern. But hey, if you're scoring 40 goals and you're getting 30, maybe 40 assists a season, I'm cool with it. Because when was the last time we had a 40 goal score? Waiting.
Yep.
Waiting. Yeah, exactly. It's been that long.
It's been a minute. Yeah, when your top guy scores 60 points for the year, that's not good enough.
It's not good at all.
All right. Great podcast. You know that in the span of just us sitting down and recording, Roger Federer just whooped up on this guy. 6-0, 6-3, 6-4. He destroyed him. I kept looking. I'm like, we started. It was about the first set, and then I blinked, and it was already midway through the third. He crushed him.
Yeah, during Doxson's session there, you were just going on and tuned you out for a second. I went and I checked it out, and the other dude, who was it, Marcus Willis, was incredibly frustrated. Just like he was so peeved off about where his shots were landing and what was going on. So
he got whooped in the span of an hour.
Federer destroyed him.
Great podcast, sir. Great things happening for the network. Stay tuned. Great things are coming for this network as long as you work hard, have fun, and do your own thing. It's the best way to be. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon, 151 in the books.
Wiz Khalifa said it best: work hard, play hard. Go Tigers.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me. They tell me things that I will do. They show me things I'll do.